So there's a saying that says the map is not the territory. And this saying came from a guy named Alfred Korzybski. And he wrote a book called Science and Sanity way back in the 30s, and he founded the study, or the whole area of study of general semantics, which looks at the words that we use and looks at the meaning behind our words. And so what Korzybski said in his theories, his theoretical approach to semantics, is that there's a world outside, and then we have 5 senses that we use to perceive the world. And how our 5 senses work is we actually create a representation of the world, and that's what we see, an internal representation of the world. He called it the map. The map is not the territory. Your perception of the world is not the world. So if you're in a situation, maybe a very emotional situation between you and somebody else, you have a perception of what's going on. Who started it? Who's the problem? There could be a lot of drama going on. And your perception is not the actual situation. It's subjective. It's your map. But the map is never the territory. And what he was trying to say is that often we act as though the map is the territory. And so the concept here is always have enough self-doubt that no matter what your reaction is, realize that it's still subjective. You could learn a little more. Maybe the other person's point of view could be helpful. Maybe right at this moment when you're really sure, you could kind of look at yourself and say, what's going on with me? Because your programming is involved. And in relationships and work relationships, personal relationships, we want to create better teamwork, better relationships, understand each other better. And often the inferences that we make in a given situation are inaccurate. And because they're inaccurate, they cause us to act in such a way that could be damaging to the relationship. So the map is not the territory, it's just that understanding that no matter what I think about a situation, I could be wrong. It could be distorted. Now, I often use this. If you saw a rattlesnake on the floor right now, would you have a reaction? Okay, so that's called the flight or fight response. So some would run out of the room, and maybe some would want to fight the snake, but you would have some kind of a reaction to it. Most wouldn't want to fight the snake. They'd want to get away from the snake. Well, then if you looked at it again, okay, so in my stress classes, we often talk about, we say the snake is the stressor and you're the stressee, because you're experiencing stress, and the snake caused distress. But what if you look at it again, you didn't have your glasses, and you realize, oh, it looked like a snake, but it wasn't really a snake, it was a rope? Then you say, was the rope the stressor? Did the rope cause me to have this reaction? Well, your perception that it was a snake caused you to have the reaction. It doesn't matter whether it was a rope or a snake, as long as you have a perception in your map that it's dangerous, you're going to have the same reaction anyway. And I use this to represent the fact that you could be in a situation where you're dealing with somebody who acts like a snake, and you perceive them in a certain way, and they will create physical reactions in you because you see them that way. And if you could look at them a different way, you wouldn't have that reaction. Some people get really pressured by time. I got so much to do and I can't get all that. And they get so frustrated that it affects them. They get all stressed out over time. And would it be possible to look at the same situations in a different way that caused you to work on getting everything done, but not to feel that intenseness of that emotion as a result of it? Is the emotion always helpful? Not necessarily. A certain amount of stress over your deadlines is probably good. But if you get too much of it, it works against you and causes such an intense emotional reaction that it actually defeats its original purpose and makes it harder for you to get everything done. You feel overwhelmed. And so emotionally intelligent people, as they're reacting with whatever is out there, are aware of their maps. And they're aware of their reactions and the stress that comes up and so forth, and they're dealing with it and they're working with it so that in their reactions, they're not actually sabotaging their ability to move through the things in their life that they've chosen. So I use some terminology here. Okay, so we have external events, that's the territory, the things that are happening to us. They're circumstances that happen, they're time pressures, they're people and the things that people say and do. And then inside, whenever an event happens outside, I make neural associations within the neurology of my brain. This happens, and I have this reaction. And you start to see reactive patterns, that in certain situations you have similar reactions. Why? Are those reactions helpful? Or are they putting you in a situation where what you do when you have those reactions actually makes the situation worse? My dad was a worrywart. He's passed on, but when he was alive, he was the biggest worrywart I'd ever seen. He worried about everything, just irrationally. And it's just amazing how it worked at him and worked on me. He would worry about little things all the time. And I'd say to him, Dad, relax, it's okay. He couldn't talk to him. He had this programming that just caused him to be that way. And it really got to him as he got older. It affected his health in tremendous ways. So we make these neural associations, and then we frame the situation. So how you frame it is how you experience it. And it happens automatically. So if somebody yells at me, I'm going to frame that a certain way. It's like, you have no right to yell at me. I might have an indignant reaction to them. That's how I framed it. But when I experience that automatic framing and reaction, if I think about it and I can be rational, I could reframe it. I could say, well, this individual's having a bad day. So it's understandable how they might talk to me in this tone of voice. If I really don't want them to talk to me in this tone of voice, what could I do? So if I have the indignant reaction, it might actually cause them to talk to me in a worse tone of voice. But I don't get that as long as I'm looking at it in this reactive frame. But if I can reframe the situation and look at it differently, maybe the way I respond to them could be different and cause them to stop talking to me in that tone of voice. But I got to have a handle on my framing, and I got to have an ability to reframe it in a different way. That's one way of overcoming your programming, is to be able to reframe a situation in the middle of an event. That reframing is essentially rewriting the map, changing the map, your internal map of what's going on at a given time.